Welcome in this very first series, Tuffie and the Alchemist. And in this first video, we will explain who we are, what we think, and what we wrote, because we both wrote a book about the truth, about the anatomy of God, the anatomy of consciousness and energy. And I never met anyone who wrote a book like me as well. So these are Gary and Christine, and they are the Alchemist. So how did your path start, Gary? You're living in the Netherlands for more than 30 years already?
It's almost 30 years.
Almost.
Feels like a long time. Yeah. And here in the Netherlands there is a really nice piece of nature that everybody can tap into. And if you're following nature, then your path can lead you into all sorts of new discoveries. What nature can tell you and how you can read the book of nature.
But your root is in New Zealand. I thought that is more nature than here.
Yeah, New Zealand is full of nature, but that's for nature. And here, the Netherlands is full of nature, but for the people. So you come much closer. You can walk around in nature here. There you have to really go on an adventure if you want to get into nature. And here you just go out your back door and you're in, like we are now.
So the reason, I'm just looking on the screen to you because then I can continue my conversation. But it's weird because we have to get used to it. But what was the reason you for nature? What was the impulse to get here and live your life here?
Yeah, to come and help the people that live in Europe to understand that you can run away to faraway land or an island in the Pacific to discover yourself and discover nature, but the best place to do that is here in West Europe, and then you're still home and you come in touch much quicker with yourself than if you jump on the plane and fly to faraway land. It's not necessary.
And what is your background professionally? Your work?
Now since coming to the Netherlands, I'm working very much in the ecological building industry. So we're making healthy houses for people. So you bring the nature inside, right into your house, which is so important here because the industry here has totally forgotten how to do that. We're going for quantity and cheapness, so it shouldn't cost any money, and we should build as many as we can because there's always a shortage, but it's not the right way to approach it. We won't need as many houses if they're healthy. People will live much more together and much more in contact with each other in a more community atmosphere. There are places in the Netherlands where that's being done, and the people love it. So why don't we just do it more? Why do we have to follow an industry that says, no, it's all going to be from out of a factory? And you will live in a concrete house that's been built in a factory and put together like a Lego set in a huge industrialized subdivision that's not for people but for houses. And the houses have to last as long as they can, longer than the people. So if we make them much more ecologically friendly.
I wrote a chapter in my book about this whole principle of, in my profession, I got demolished in my profession because it went from quality and the best to the cheapest and the fastest, which I'm not. So it's a whole, it's like a universal thing, huh?
Yeah,
it's the male energy.
Yeah, that's the shadow part of the male energy, how I write it, which is trying to keep itself up.
Now, Gary always calls two things, and that's the chainsaw and the Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, yes.
That's the two most damaging things to
in
the
world at
Yeah.
the moment. Yeah,
because the chainsaw cuts the trees down, but the Excel spreadsheet makes sure that they get sold for the cheapest price and the biggest quantity without taking into consideration where they've come from or even where they're going.
And following protocol, I would add.
Yeah.
Following the protocol is like... But we're already into a subject, I just want to go to the introduction. How do two people write a book about consciousness, and why, and
Yeah, then you come down, of course, to the one answer that everybody wants to know: what are we even doing here?
yeah,
If you want to understand why we're here and what our task is, what we're being asked to do, then you need to understand what the world is, what nature is, what the universe is,
yeah,
where we're living, what is our big house. And house, our home, is Mother Earth, the earth itself.
yeah,
And if you understand how important it is to get to know your own mother and your own children, then our Mother Earth is our mother. And getting to know Mother Earth is so important.
Have you had some kind of spiritual path you have, besides nature, you have followed, like maybe sessions
Yeah,
of
there's
some kind?
actually a three-way path that I've been walking. It was fun to get back here to Europe, where my roots are Celtic, Druid roots, in touch with nature. But also, I've been following the anthroposophy of Rudolf Steiner
Mm-hmm.
for more than 30 years. And then the third aspect is the esoteric wisdom that you see oozing out of all of the old buildings, the old temples, the cathedrals, the stone circles here in Western Europe, all the way from Russia through to Ireland in the west.
Yeah. And how did you two meet? Since when is this constellation happening?
We met back in 2013.
13.
13, yeah. We both met each other on a course called Eco Intention, and it was the third and the fourth year we did together. And I was in the third year. You have to work with a crop circle, and all the students chose their own one, and we had the assignment to fill into all the layers and work with it. And the stuff Gary came up with really impressed me, because he was just getting all sorts of information and layers which unfortunately I wasn't able to get out of mine. And he wrote this great short, what was it, a sort
A
of
manuscript, a project for Eco Intention. But you
Yeah.
can understand that the crop circles are messages from Mother Earth, how to look after the earth, and you can decode them. There's so much in.
I've seen them in your book, how you've analyzed them, and I'm very impressed with that. What are crop circles from your perspective? Is it something? How do you call it? Sterile? No, like ET?
From
From an alien? Is it
extraterrestrials.
extraterrestrial?
No,
That
no,
was
it
the word
doesn't
I was
have to be.
looking.
The two things that the crop circles are is first information that we
Information, yeah.
need, and that's hidden in the geometry. So you get into the geometry of how the earth is made, but also how the universe is made.
But who prints it?
Yeah, we've printed them ourselves from out of the future. So that's it's all energetic work. So we were here, or we've already been here.
Okay.
We're coming here for the second time around. So we've left this energetic information behind. You can't leave physical objects, but you can leave the energy. And the energy, in order to manifest itself, that does it through Mother Earth, a living organism. And that living organism that they use is the crops themselves, the plants. The energy just folds the plants over in a geometric pattern. And then you can read the message that you've left for yourself from out of the future. It's not necessarily your own personal message, but the message of humanity that's walking the other way through the universe, walking the other way through time. It's quite an interesting thing, and you need to read the book to really get into how time goes in two
We
directions.
will explain this in future series.
But the second aspect of the crop circles is they're an energetic healing for Mother Earth.
Earth, yeah.
So the information doesn't just go to humanity, but goes into the
Also.
water. And that's why the really important crop circles are all coming in England, because underneath that crop circle region is a lot of
Water.
chalk, sandstone. And message from the crop circle, the energy goes into the water takes it out to the sea, and within 3 days it's around the whole earth. That message that
Wow.
sits in the crop circle.
I didn't know that. That's really nice that you bring this in my consciousness. What I do know is that water and the meridians are getting increasingly more important
Yeah.
the more we arise in our frequency ourselves. We end in Atlantis.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
That's so nice. In 25,920 years, we will end in Atlantis because our frequency is like almost like divine height. But how we work is through the magnetism and the electricity power of the meridians of the earth.
Yes.
So now we have oceans. It's like wild and we don't have any control about it. But what I see in that future is that we have also all kinds of circuits which communicate with other planets and other universes, and it's very, very complex. But it's very simple as well because we only have to focus on the water, and then it's
and we're
it's what
made
you-
out of 80% of water.
it's
as
what
well.
you describe. And I never knew this about crop circles.
That's the important thing about the water, because water is the translation medium from the energy has to come through the water in order to come into the physical. So what you see is physical geometry and the stone circles and the temples that we've made as people, but also how nature builds a tree or builds a mountain or builds a whole river system
Yeah.
that's transferring the energy blueprint into the physical world via the water.
Yeah.
The water is the carrier, but water is also the bridge between the physical earth and the etheric levels that go around the earth, which you can quite loosely translate as the electromagnetic fields.
Yeah.
So when you go to traveling the stars, traveling through the universe, you're traveling in the etheric fields, which are sort of a waterway. We'll travel the seas of the electromagnetic spectrum in the future rather than the seas of the earth,
Right.
and end up back
Because-
in Atlantis.
Yeah, right. Because the seas of the earth are grounded in Atlantis, because then the earth blows itself up. And what I see, and it's like two time frames. One is the fall of Atlantis, and one is the time we are in now.
Mhm.
And in that time, the earth energy field is destructed, and in this time, the human energy field is destructed.
Mhm.
It's different because in that time the earth explodes, and because of the explosion you get oceans, and all the meridians are wiped out.
Yeah, you're moving into the not too far distant future where the earth starts to spiritualize itself.
Yeah,
So it needs to start, disentangling itself of starting to take itself apart again, dismantle itself,
yes,
and turn each little piece back into a spiritual world,
Yes.
and back into the ether. So it goes straight away from physical world to the etheric world. It starts dissolving, and that can cause cataclysma on Earth, things exploding. But hopefully we'll keep that to a minimum. The more we improve our human consciousness, the more control we will have, or we'll be able to get to grips with that energy, so it doesn't have to take us over, but we become the controlling force of the energy, and we can move it to create rather than have it build up and build up and build up until it explodes,
yeah,
which is a volcano. That's nothing other than an energy that's having to find a way out through the earth. So the less volcanic activity we have, the better our own earth consciousness or human consciousness is. So you can see that as a sort of measurement system for human consciousness. If there's too much volcanic activity, then we're not really focusing enough on our task as humanity. But it's going to happen. We've got too many blockages at the moment, and volcanic activity is a way of releasing blockages.
yeah. So let's go back to this manuscript about this crop circle, because that was the start of your book.
Yeah.
And of your visions. What happened exactly? Can you describe it? Because my angle is chakra system. It's like the human experience.
Yes.
and music, which is different, but we have a lot of similarities.
That's where we connect, because the geometry is what gets added to the musical system. The musical system is the numbers,
Yes.
and the geometry is the form that comes
Yes.
out of the numbers. And the crop circle that I worked on was very much based on the flower of life. It was not the flower of life. It had much more information even for us than the flower of life does. The flower of life is the blueprint for the whole universe
Yeah.
itself. This crop circle had 7 layers in it, and each layer corresponded with a chakra.
Wow.
So the first layer is red for the base chakra, and then it goes up orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So you have all 7 layers, and then I discovered, of course, that there's a 0 layer that's underneath
Yeah.
the base chakra, the number 1. So you end up with 8 chakras, and eventually
9. Yeah. I have 9, and I
Yeah.
call it -7. Your 0 is -7, and there's
Yeah.
like +7, and there's +8 and -8 and +9 and -9. And the weird thing is, and that's really not easy to comprehend, is that -9 and +9 are the same,
yes.
but they are also underneath and above, which is I'm out of this.
No,
thing.
that's absolutely right, because the drawing that comes out of the crop circles, that you've got 9 chakras above
Yeah.
and 9 chakras below that are mirrored through a 0 chakra. The 0 chakra is the mirror point.
Yeah.
So then you've got 9 plus 9 is 18, plus 1 is 19, which is the number of the sun
In the tarot.
in the tarot.
Yes, that's very interesting because
and 19 is absolutely the number of circles in the flower of life.
yeah.
So you go bingo. This has
Yeah.
to add up. The flower of life is the number 19. And
Yeah.
now we discover that the chakra system is not 7 or 9 or 12. They all have their role, the other chakra systems, but eventually you come to the number 19.
Yeah, I come to 13, which is funny. I thought 19. How is that possible? But that's because I'm very confident in that I write about. Although I write about the anatomy of God and consciousness, but it's really focused on the human energy field, and you are describing the universal energy field,
Yes.
which is a different angle as well. And it's so interesting. And and then you two wrote the book together from that point. I'm just going in
Yeah,
and
that's the
back to
interesting
the
thing,
story.
because in the end, you discover that 9 of it, the 9 chakra system is the masculine side, and then you have a 9 chakra system under, that's the feminine side.
Yeah,
Or the other way
And-
around,
yeah,
depending on from which way you're looking.
The other way around.
yeah. Well, in the
Yeah.
in the old time,
Yeah.
it was the other way around. In the new time,
Yeah.
I will explain that later.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
old time really forced the feminine side into the center of the earth. That's why the Mother Earth effect is the center of the
Yeah.
earth. And we see the feminine being pushed under over and over and over again in our evolution. But now we're sitting at the turning point where it tips the other way, and the feminine starts to rise up and pushes the masculine under, but in such a way that you end up with an equilibrium, with a balance between the two, and not
It's not fighting or
it's
pushing.
not going into a new fight.
No.
The feminine aspect doesn't work that way. The
No.
feminine is always a receiving aspect,
And all inclusive.
Yeah,
receiving all-inclusive aspect.
yeah. For me, the feminine aspects are surrender and chaos. If they are the same in polarity with consciousness and focus. So you have consciousness and surrender. That's the masculine and feminine polarity of God. Let's call it God or consciousness. And then there is a temporary energy, which is chaos and focus together, which is also masculine and feminine. And that's what I call human life,
Yes.
the temporary life. And we both have all 4 polarities in it.
In us. Yeah.
Because I always thought that polarity was like a 2 thing, but it's a 4 thing. It's a 4 But I will explain it later with a sheet when we do the.
Yeah, I always see it as a double duality.
Right.
Oh.
That's yeah.
Another way of saying it.
Yeah, other way of saying it. Yeah.
You actually see it as the cross because you have a duality above and below,
Oh.
and you have a duality horizontal, left and right.
Yeah.
And that are the two dualities. And if you draw them in the form of a triangle, you have a double triangle this way and a double triangle this way, and they make a nice cross. The
Yeah.
Celtic cross comes out of that double duality.
So we both wrote a book about energy and consciousness and the G word. And what is your longing for this book? What do you want this book to do in the world?
Yeah, especially the book that we've written, because you say you, but it's actually us.
Yeah, the Alchemist.
The
You are
Alchemist. So
both.
we've already joined fire
Co-creation.
and water, the co-creation, the masculine and the feminine.
Yeah.
And then you see the scientific aspect coming out from me, the masculine side, and the social aspect coming from Christina, the feminine side. And we need to bring that out to the world. We need to let the world know how important it is to look at a new form of science, a science that's all-inclusive. And alchemy was an inclusive science originally. The science that we have today is born out of alchemy by, again, pushing the feminine under. If you push the feminine under, you've got a masculine science, and that's what we're in today. And you see the whole of science now discussing and really coming to grips with what they call the crisis of science. They're not sure where to go next.
Yeah.
They
right.
know where they want to get, but they've got absolutely no idea how to get there.
Well, I wrote several times in my book. They have all the answers, but they don't look the wrong direction.
Yeah, they're
That's-
not sure anymore what the question was.
Yeah, well, that's another aspect. They ask the wrong question, so
And
you get the
also
wrong
too
answer.
focused on one thing. So
Yes.
if you're only focusing on one thing and try to get more focus, you
Yeah.
get to a dead-end street. Where you
Right.
just need to really get
Right.
to a broader perspective.
Can you define for me the word alchemy? What does it mean exactly for you and for the collective?
Yeah, alchemy is all of the natural sciences brought together in one aspect. So you go back to the old mystery schools
Yeah.
from hundreds of years ago, but eventually you end up all the way back to Atlantis when religion and science were also combined.
Yeah.
And that was the birthplace of the true alchemy. So first thing that happened was the religion was shed off, and just the natural sciences went further, and then that was split up. So it's a splitting of the splitting of the splitting.
Yeah.
And alchemy brings it all back together again. That's
Yeah.
why we chose to actually join together as the alchemist and not as some sort of futurologist or scientific
Yeah. I
birthplace.
understand.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I was really very bad in mathematics. But because of the music, I was, forced to work with numbers. So I've got a few chapters in my book only about numbers and expressing
Yes.
the whole thing with numbers, which is ridiculous for me because I didn't understand anything of it. But what I noticed in the time of Plato, because I'm tuning into the energy of the wisdom of Plato, and in the school of Hippocrates there was like the science was a combination of art, philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy and nature science,
Yes.
and that all together was science. And I thought, why did they leave that? They never should have stopped combining that, because what in my book I don't have any new answers. The only thing I do is connect all the answers together. And they could do it. They could do the same science if they would get together, if they would look into each other's science and look what the gemene deler is. What's the gemene deler?
The commonality
common
between connecting factor there.
Right, then everybody would have access to the anatomy of source.
Yes.
Yeah, But there's still, of course, that unseen factor, which we cannot pinpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's for me the feminine part,
Yeah.
the unconscious feeling, because God is for me light, masculine, electricity, power, and feminine, unconscious darkness, and it's sound as well. It's silent, and that's together they are the eternal. Yeah, I like to call it God anyway, because it's so polar. It's so together. It's not masculine anymore. God. It's
no,
it's
absolutely
together.
not.
and the reason I think the feminine part has forgotten is not only because of the
Well, it's not forgotten. They
no,
really, they did.
it's suppressed. They did
They
really
worked
a lot
very
of
hard.
they worked very hard to suppress the feminine part, but that's also because it's an unconscious part of us in us, and we are just not conscious of it. So it's so hard to be conscious in an unconscious part of a cell, which is not possible in theory. So that is the eternal tension of duality of our ego as well.
Yeah, but those tension fields also make life possible. So it's
It's a stretch.
Yeah, it's even more important that the tension fields allow us to not be God.
Yeah.
And that was the whole intention of creating the universe, was to create a world that was not God. And then we can, of course, go much more deeper into what is the God that we have today. But right back at the very beginning of time and space, before there was time and space, there was what we call in the book universal cosmic consciousness. That's the consciousness of everything that ever was and everything that is now and everything that ever will be. So it's the one enfolding consciousness of the whole universe. And in order to not be that one enfolding consciousness, we created a separation. That separation we now call God. And God is different to that consciousness. Our concept of God now is a masculine energy sitting on a throne,
External from us.
Yeah, ruling the universe for us.
Yeah.
And that we are answerable to, and we can pray to that energy. But that's only half of the picture. There is the feminine picture, and if you really get down to it, you're talking about the Christ energy and the Sophia energy, and the God that we are worshipping is one level higher than the Christ energy, which is then split into two: masculine, feminine, the Christ energy and the Sophia energy.
Right. You call it Sophia energy. We will get into the details later in later sessions, but could that be the same as what I call the Magdalene energy, or is that something really different?
It's an aspect of it as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Isis as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are
Then
many
we
names.
have the same frequency here.
But the Sophia
Yeah, it's
energy
really
is the pure,
Wisdom.
untouched wisdom, or feminine wisdom that goes right back to the very beginning of time and space, and all the other feminine goddesses and energies fit under the Sophia energy, in the same way that the Christ energy is the masculine energy that we're working with on Earth at the moment. So it's a clear split, male and female, all the way up to God itself. So eventually we will combine the Christ energy and the Sophia energy back together, and then we will have true oneness. But that's a long way into the future. We've got a lot of work to do on the way.
Yeah. Yes and no. Yes and no.
Yeah, well, the books now, these books are coming out, and
They will speed up the process.
yes, exactly.
Because that was my next question. Why is it so important that we are meeting and talking about this and putting this in the world? Because we both had this urge to do that, and together, because we are also each other's platform and are each other's bedding.
We're part of a worldwide network of people that are rising up now,
Yes.
that are reaching a form of enlightenment.
Yes, and I wrote it so clearly in my book, and I if I remember it, what I wrote, because it's a year ago already, everybody there are a few people really busy with this and downloading information, and everybody has his own angle and his own expertise and his own background and his own way of thinking and understanding. And I can really feel that you have such a different way of thinking and understanding than I have. So it's really very nice to talk with you in a new era way, you know, not like I think it's you and it's you and that we are against. It's the old way. No, it's complementary.
Yes.
And it's like if I don't understand it, it's an invitation to learn more.
Yeah, we need each other.
Yeah, right. And I learn from you as well, and I hope the other way around as well. But yes, so
We've got 1,000 questions about your book as well.
yes, that's you may fire it on
Fun
me.
questions.
Yes, yes. Because let's talk about the necessity. Is that the word? To talk about this stuff now in this time of the world.
Yeah, in the book Quantum Geometry, that's the first book that we've written.
There are 3 of them.
Which are going to be 3
Yeah,
books.
wow.
The second one is going to be about the cosmic world, and the third one is about our world where we're living, the nature around us. But the first book is so important because it discusses the building blocks of everything. And if you know what the building is built out of, then you can go on to explore the different levels.
Yes.
So we had to get that one out first, let everyone know how everything is built. But it's so important at this moment because we're in what esoteric wisdom calls the turning point of time.
Yes.
It's the transformation point. It's the point where we go from the old to the new, literally, physically from the old to the new. And so many things are going to open up at this time. It's not only what we've been writing about.
No.
It's what everybody that's writing about in this world. But then you have to be careful to start to look at the misinformation, and that's a whole another subject that we'll have to
Well,
cover at another
there's
point
my
of time.
book important for, because I teach people to tune in their intuition and to feel to trust their gut feeling, because if we leave our nature, then that's gone.
Yeah.
That skill is gone. And if we come back just by doing breathing and yoga and having clean food, it's you come back to yourself and you breathe into your cells, and then you know.
Yes.
You just know. You don't have to be unsecure for something. You just know. And while everybody says, "Oh, it's wrong," you just know. No, this is good for me.
Yeah, reconnect to your own
Yeah.
source connection.
And can you tell me a little bit more? Because I will talk about a lot about the time of change, because that's what my book is about. But I really am curious about your vision about it. Why do you think we are in the time of change?
There's a very strong esoteric reason to describe this as the time of change, the turning point of time, it's officially called, which goes back all the way back to the time of Atlantis, and before the time of Atlantis to the Garden of Eden, when we were in the original continent of Lemuria. Lemuria was the earthly version of the etheric garden.
Right before Atlantis, huh? A few
Before
thousand
Atlantis,
years before
yeah,
Atlantis.
before
yeah.
Atlantis, and that was the time when we went through the fall, which
Yeah.
was the moment that the feminine was pushed under and the masculine became over dominant, and we've been living with that crisis for thousands and thousands of years. It resulted in the catastrophe of Atlantis when they first tried to heal that damage. Then came the time of Christ. That was the second endeavor to heal the damage, and we now go to third time lucky. We get one more chance. But this chance is going to work, because at this time we've got everything on our side. We've got all the different energetic levels, all the different hierarchies of beings, also all the way out to the star systems coming in to help Earth go through this transformation stage at this moment. And you can see the real proof of the pudding is the sheer number of people that have come to the Earth to make this happen. almost 7 billion people are here at this point.
Yeah.
The Earth has
It's
never
the
had
most
so
never
many
have
people.
right. That's what I see, and there will never be any more people
No.
like now, because in Atlantis we will live with a third of the population we are living now.
Yeah. This is the ultimate Me Too moment.
It's
Everybody wants to be here. Me too. Are you going to Earth? It's really happening there. Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, interesting, because that's really an area I haven't had my focus on, so I don't know anything about that. All those.
You can all read it in the book.
I will, and I will read it in your energy field as well. So it's even more fun for me than a book. But yeah, what I see is that my wake up call was that there were more in my life, but the big one was when the Maya calendar stopped.
Mhm.
There was something going on in that time, and at that time I thought it was 2012, and in retrospect now I think it's 2020. But it was good that it was in my consciousness at that time, because I started to think about, but what is happening then? Something was changing. And what I saw after 2012 is that the chakra field was opposite. It was turned around. So we had like two chakra system, an old one and a new one. And I was really curious about what has happened. So my first idea was that we were polarized. Something was polarized. And at that time, I didn't know what. In the new realm, we have this higher chakra system activated, and we have the conscious part from that. My English is not good, but that's what I saw. That there was a time switch.
Yeah, the turning point.
And
Literally,
that is the turning point.
That
yeah.
is the turning point.
And there has been a turning point.
Because the chakras that go down, the minus chakras, if you want to call them the minus chakras, come up to meet the above chakras, and the chakras down is the feminine. The chakra system going up is the masculine. Or left or right, it doesn't have to be in a dimension.
Yeah.
It's just one goes one way and one goes the other way. We've split it apart. But now we turn it the other way and bring it back together again. That's the turning point of time, but it's actually the turning point of human consciousness.
Yeah, right.
And this is what we've been working to since the beginning of time and space, since the beginning of the Earth incarnations, is in order to make this happen, to reach this point. We've done it. We've been doing it since the end of the last millennium, 1998, through the millennium point to 2000. And the middle of this whole transformation period was 2012. Now we're reaching the end. Now we have to be filling in the last boxes in the spreadsheet.
So there were like
together.
3 parts of it.
Yeah, a beginning, a middle, and an end. We're now in the end
Makes
of
sense.
the transformation. 2012 was the middle. It wasn't the point where everything happened. It was just the middle of a process that's taken.
Yes, and I've heard astrologically in 2024 it will be different. Something will happen, and everybody will have consciousness at that point.
Yeah, we came into Aquarius officially, with this last solar in December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can really feel that things have shifted since that time, and things are differently.
Yeah, and so if you look at it with the numbers, it's quite fun, because 2012 was the middle. Go back 13 years and you get into the end of the 1990s. That was the beginning. Add 13 years to 2012 when you come around 2024, 25. So you've got the numbers 12, 24 and 13 playing a major role numerologically in this whole process. So everything is really clearly pointing to this being the critical moment.
Yeah. And well, we started it already before. What's the important to talk about this regularly? Why?
Yeah, there's so much information that needs to come out.
That's it, huh?
Needs to come out is quite a dramatic way of saying it. But if we're going to transform science, if we're going to transform culture, the health situation,
Everything,
the politics,
onderwijs,
the economic system.
yeah.
It all has to be transformed. But we can start with science as being a
Yeah,
pulling
tool.
together moment, because that goes through all of the
Yeah.
other aspects, and it's the aspect that's really being accentuated at the moment with
Yeah.
the crisis that we're in. Trust the scientists; they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, we've heard that in the 2008. Trust the bankers; they know what they're doing. We heard that at the end of last century. Trust the politicians; they know what they're doing.
We
And
don't trust anybody anymore, only
only God,
ourselves and the nature. Yeah.
universal consciousness.
Yeah. I wanted to say something.
Yeah, we're really looking from a scientific perspective how this all will fit together.
Right.
And the ultimate goal of science has been to reach a uniform concept of the quantum fields,
Yeah.
which they call the universal theory of everything.
Yeah.
And when you get to the end of our first book, you start to discover that we could be really touching on bringing together of all the different aspects of science into a theory of everything.
Yes. I hope that will happen, because while I was writing, I strongly felt, well, I am a voiceover and a jazz singer, and no scientist would be interested in my science. But what if it's true? Then they have really a problem, because I haven't studied science for years, and I'm not scientific at all, even not technically, and I'm not even good with numbers. So that's really
Yeah, there was the scientist that has passed away recently that makes all this possible.
Who's that?
Because that's Stephen Hawking.
Oh yeah.
He was the
course.
scientist that was bringing so much to the world, but he'd also, to a certain degree, lost the way. One of his nice comments was he was talking about God playing dice, which goes all the way back to Einstein. Einstein said God doesn't play dice, and Stephen Hawking said, well, maybe God does play dice, but every now and again he throws the dice somewhere where you can't find it. And that is into the strangest of places, like here, this back garden with us sitting in it. It's one of the places where the dice from God have landed, that's creating a whole new level of consciousness. It's not in the scientists anymore. It's not in the politicians. Not in the bankers. It's not in the famous medical professors and medical breakthroughs. It's in the normal people.
Yeah.
And luckily, you're not the only one on the planet at the moment that's got the information that
No.
you've got. You're one of a whole group of people that will rise up and join together.
Yeah,
And
that's
then it
what
won't
I
matter
strongly felt.
who you are. It
Yeah.
will. The most important thing will be when they ask you, Tuffie, where's your piece of the puzzle?
Yeah.
And you go, well, actually, it's here, and you just
Yeah,
lay
right.
it down, and it fits in. It clicks into the puzzle. You say,
Yeah.
okay, we've got that one. And then we go to America and we get the puzzle pieces from there, and we go to Japan and we get the puzzle pieces.
That's
from
what
there.
that's what I saw. While I was writing the book, I saw the only thing I have to do is connect with the scientist and just read his field, and then I can give him back
Yes.
his
Yes,
information.
and
if he would
and you will help
believe
him.
me. Yeah,
because
right.
he's lost his dice. They've
Right.
rolled into the garden and he can't find them. He knows they're there. He had them in his hands. He says, I found it. This is my eureka moment. I've got the theory of everything. And then it fell out of his hands
Right.
and rolled out into the garden.
Right.
And you're going to say, hey, have you looked under that plant
Yeah.
over there? And have you looked under that flower pot?
Yeah. So this is important for building up a new kind of science, more on alchemy-based science. Let's put it that way. But for normal people who watch this, what can they benefit from?
Yeah, first thing they have to do is stop watching the TV and start watching
Us.
us. Yes, start watching the people who are really bringing about the transformation. That's just ordinary people standing out in the street. It can be the person who's standing at the supermarket selling you a newspaper. It could be the person standing behind the cash register at the
Yeah.
supermarket. It could be the person driving the trains or telling you that you've come too late because the train has been delayed. That's all the ordinary people that are making ordinary life happen, and they're all part of universal cosmic consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Nice. How long did we talk? This is 8 minutes. Oh,
Yeah, we only just got started again.
it's like 45 minutes around. We can talk a little bit more. According to you, what is happening now if we talk about the shadow part of the masculine energy causing all kinds of movements in the society? How would you explain that, and what will the near future look?
Yeah, this is clearly the splitting point. This is the time when we divide into two different groups of society, and for a lot of people, it's very scary. But it also suddenly makes everything very clear. It's an awakening for everybody. Everyone is being asked to look at what's going on around them and say, "Is this how we want the Earth to be?" Or most importantly,
Or society.
is
this
this
how we want to
normal?
live in society?
Are we now normal? And most people that are awakening are saying, "This is not normal.
Yeah.
We need to do something about it." That's what awakening is. That moment when you get out of bed and say, "This is not how it's supposed to be."
No.
And start taking your own
Yeah,
responsibility.
exactly. Then you need to do something about it.
That's the
That's-
most important
That's the
thing.
most important, and that's the most difficult for
Yeah.
most of us, because we're used to how life is or was, and then you're asked to pick up your own problems, and that will take time, and a lot of people will be in shock, and a lot of people will be angry, a lot of people will be
Traumatized.
traumatized. Yeah, basically,
Just-
you are already. Yeah, there's a lot of people.
The weird thing is that last year I was noticing that I was preparing myself to heal the traumatized world.
Mhm.
I thought, why? At that time it was not very clear, but now I know why.
Well, and the funny thing is, it's not so much the world itself; it's us people.
Yeah, it's the people. Yeah,
the people.
It's the human.
Yeah, because if you
energy
tune
field.
into nature, it's
No,
been doing
that's-
better than ever.
Yeah,
But it's us, humanity,
yeah,
who are really need to make a lot of huge changes.
yeah.
And otherwise, others will make them for you, and that might not be what
Yeah.
you had in mind for your own life.
No, because what I notice is that on so many, in so many areas, we are bypassed from ourselves from generations long. Generations and generations.
Much longer. But
It's
because of the technology development, now
It
it's
goes
possible
really very fast.
fast, but also global.
Yeah,
This wasn't possible when we were just like really living on in communities and in separate countries. But
No.
now everything is connected with
And
everything.
the third aspect, it becomes visible,
yeah.
Yeah,
so you can see it every day.
That's the most comforting part. That everything shows up. It comes.
but it ain't pretty to look at.
No, it's really it's every time worse than I thought it would be. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
It's like every time I think, no, it cannot
They
be
can't do
true.
that.
No,
No,
they
they
can't
won't
do
do
that.
that.
No,
No.
that's not true. And then it's
They
true. and
did
then
it. They pushed the button.
They did it, yes. So, what's the most important thing we have to do?
Get the button out of the hands of the people.
No,
That shouldn't be
get in
pushed.
touch with yourself,
Yes.
your inner. That's the only way out.
Yeah.
You need to reconnect with who you are, and then indeed, from there on, you're capable of dealing any kind of situation.
Yeah, I think I stole your Facebook post about this woman. She is with the sugar
Cubes,
sugar
yes.
cubes.
That's
Fantastic,
what it's
yeah.
about.
Because she expresses it so clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Just to express it, to explain it very shortly, is that she explains that if you fight, you build up more sugar cubes, and then she builds up the sugar cubes
Into a
and you-
pyramid.
into
Yeah,
a
the
pyramid.
pyramid
and you-
structure,
with
which
one
is
cube at the
everywhere.
top.
yeah, and there's one cube at the top, and you cannot win from the tower. And if you try, you will always lose. And how to solve it was so easy. She just poured some water over the sugar and boom, as a sand.
Yeah.
the sugar just fell down, and that's
Now, yeah, and also indeed how our conscious works. So when we start vibrating at a higher frequency, we're also really creating circles. I mean, the other day when we were walking
Yeah.
in the forest, I was witnessing the drops falling in the puddle, and you just see this drop, and it makes these nice circles, and then it just the whole drop goes, and you
Yeah.
think, okay, but that's who we are as
Yeah.
well. We're all these drops, but we all create our own circle. So it really starts with each and every individual.
yeah,
And if you see the circles landing, the water drops landing in the calm pool of water, it has to be nice and calm.
yeah,
They don't just spread out, they also interact
Act with each other.
and then you get bigger waves where they're interacting.
Yeah.
And that's the connecting points that
Yeah.
we need to cherish. It's not just the drop landing and spreading out, the interconnection,
yeah.
the communicating with each
Yeah.
other, the creating of whole new concepts and
Yeah, and
aspects of life.
that's the how you say, the painful thing also of nowadays times, when we are so forced to keep a distance and to be enclosed in our environments, because we need each other. We need
Yeah.
to connect, and we need to share information, and not only sharing information by talking, because also what you've cleared in your energy field is information from my energy field. So without even talking to each other,
It's
we're already
Yeah.
exchanging.
it's a transmission.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can see that we're at this turning point because there's so much being done to prevent us from doing this now.
Yeah,
If you look at all the new rules and regulations, it's to keep us separate, keep us apart. But of course, we see right through it.
yeah,
It's so easy to push the pin through, right through, and then once you've seen it, then you start standing up,
yeah,
and then it doesn't matter what they're doing anymore.
yeah.
We have the strength and in numbers, in
Yeah.
community.
Well, and at first I was really arguing against it, but now I feel no. I just go my own way and just shine my light, and it will do the work.
Mhm.
It will do the work.
Yeah, the fighting is not going to help. We need
No.
to we need to go a level above it, and it's not out of arrogance, because that's sometimes how we look at those things.
Yeah,
But it's really about tuning out, and it's getting to a broader perspective,
yeah.
and uniting the male and female for that matter.
That's the most important thing. I feel the feminine now needs to be healed, and needs to start to lead from surrender, just
And
from
is that where you would like
receiving.
your book to go?
Yes. I could not push my book and put it in the world to say, oh, you have to read it. No, it will light people, and they will give it to each other,
Mhm.
and it will do its work. I strongly feel I don't have to do anything
Mhm.
about it. It will work. So shall we end this conversation? Do you have
It's a
some?
nice moment to round off.
Yes, I really enjoyed
Two
this,
new books
talk.
going out into the world
Worlds.
to make a change, and they will ripple
Yes.
out, and they will communicate and interact with each other, and they will join up with all the other ripples coming from all the other little.
I'm so
drops.
looking forward to it, and I'm so excited. It's really exciting time
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
So thank you very much,
We're gonna
and
do
I'm
it.
looking forward to the next session.
Yes.
And for everybody watching, I hope you liked it, and I hope you tune in next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.